Kira, we're making some changes to your role after your 15 years here at TechVantage, Marjorie Thompson stated, and I detected a hint of poorly hidden contentment in her tone. She was seated opposite me in the cramped meeting room, with Denise from HR right next to her. They were both sporting those carefully manufactured looks of corporate sorrow. Denise chimed in that the firm was pivoting to a different strategy, while simultaneously pushing a tan folder in my direction. Your work has been appreciated, she said, but we're merging the research department into the product development group. I simply nodded, taking the folder without bothering to look inside. The usual separation agreement would be in there, I figured. 2 weeks of pay for each year I'd been there, health insurance continuing for a quarter of a year, and a listing of career advice places I would never call. I get it, I said, my voice remaining calm. It's never simple to make choices like this. I saw their faces change, suddenly relaxed. They had obviously been bracing themselves for a show of emotion like crying, arguments, or outrage. Given that I was a 55-year-old woman getting forced out of the tech world, where being young is seen as better than having experience, I can see why. However, little did they suspect that I had been mentally preparing for this event for several weeks. It started when I accidentally received an email exchange last month. We'd appreciate it if you could clear out your workspace by Friday, Marjorie went on, sounding more self-assured thanks to my seeming willingness to accept this news. She then explained they would be needing my access badge, the company-issued computer, and my cell phone before I left the premises. I learned that my team would receive the official notice later that same day. My crew, half a dozen incredibly smart engineers that I'd hand-picked and guided through their careers. The very same group who'd collaborated with me on creating the distributed processing algorithm that now ran AccountSphere, TechVantage's main product, accounting software utilized by more than 2 out of every 5 Fortune 500 companies. Naturally, I responded, getting up from my seat. Was there something else you needed? They looked at each other for a moment, obviously surprised by how calm I seemed. Marjorie was the first to regain her composure. That'll be all for the time being, she stated. I appreciate your professionalism. On my way back to my workspace, I strolled by the conference room, which had glass walls where my team was gathered. Through the clear partition, I observed Victor Lawson, the CEO, gesturing energetically at a slideshow called Q3 Revenue Projections. The same Victor Lawson who'd claimed ownership of my algorithm at the prior year's industry event, mentioning me only as one of the individuals on our research staff. I shut my office door and took out my personal cell phone, sending a short text. The wheels are in motion. My last day is Friday. A response came back instantly. Excellent timing, the paperwork is good to go. Shall we have dinner tonight to put the finishing touches on everything? I grinned as I glanced at the datebook on my work surface. It was Wednesday. Friday would be my final time leaving TechVantage. And Monday promised to be quite interesting. That night, I found myself across from Gregory Sullivan at Meridian, a fancy eatery located quite a distance from TechVantage's main office. As the head honcho of Precision Systems, the biggest rival to TechVantage, Greg fully grasped the need for secrecy. He had booked a secluded spot for us to eat privately in the back of the restaurant, using pretty Japanese screens to keep us away from prying eyes. They really went through with it, Greg stated, shaking his head after the waiter took our orders. I had a feeling they might, but firing the very guy who invented their fundamental tech, I took a drink of water and responded that Victor had never really understood my creation. He understood what it looked like to the user, the look and feel, and how to sell it to people, but he didn't understand the base structure itself. That was just mumbo-jumbo to him. The cosmic joke was almost too much to take in. I found out about it 3 months before, that the legal team hadn't sent in the paperwork for my distributed processing algorithm. When I asked them about it, they called it a mistake. They told me they would get to it right away. Something about what they said didn't sit well with me, which is why I started digging into TechVantage's records. It was at that moment I stumbled upon it. A strategy document describing their intent to assert ownership of the algorithm as internally developed technology, without acknowledging any specific inventor. It seemed their intention was to get rid of me before they finalized the patent, on the assumption that intellectual property created by staff generally belongs to the business. However, what TechVantage wasn't aware of was that I had already dedicated my own time to enhancing the algorithm, using my own resources. Those enhancements, which boosted how efficiently it processed data by a substantial 43%, weren't part of what I'd agreed to in my work contract. I'd gone ahead and quietly submitted a patent application under my own name the previous month, with complete records including timestamps and development logs that irrefutably showed the work was done when I wasn't on company time. It was granted surprisingly fast because of Greg's connection to a really excellent intellectual property lawyer. Greg stated, pushing a folder across the table, "Everything is signed off on now. Precision Systems will officially have the sole right to use your patent the moment you put your signature here. They're planning on issuing the press release Monday morning, revealing your appointment as our new Chief Innovation Officer." I went through the paperwork thoroughly, even though I practically had the important details committed to memory: a signing bonus in the millions, a large stake in Precision Systems, and continuing payments from every product that makes use of my algorithm. I wonder what Victor's reaction will be when it finally hits him what actually went down? Greg wondered, failing to mask his pleasure at that possibility. My thoughts are more with my team, I confessed. They shouldn't have to suffer the consequences of this situation. Greg gave a quick nod, already handled. We have positions available for all 6 of them if they want them, important jobs with big salary increases. I put my name on the last page and shut the folder. With a single, efficient action, I'd made sure my future was secure, taken care of my team, and made certain my contributions would be acknowledged. To starting over, Greg offered, lifting his glass. And to truly understanding your own worth, I chimed in, tapping my glass against his. The next 2 days flew by in a whirlwind of exit interviews, meetings to pass on information, and saying farewell to coworkers. I kept my professional demeanor intact the whole time, even as gossip was spreading like wildfire throughout the company. The office staff gave me looks of pity in the corridors. Less experienced coders came up to me hesitantly, asking if I would write them recommendations on LinkedIn before I left. I made detailed notes of absolutely everything. Each project, each login, each procedure, knowing that TechVantage was soon going to find out exactly how much they relied on me. The reason I chose to leave such complete notes for the transition wasn't out of the goodness of my heart. It stood as proof. It was proof that my actions had been honest, unlike the company's. Denise, from HR, went through the usual list of questions during my last meeting on Friday afternoon, performing her job in a very rote way. She slid a non-disclosure agreement toward me across the table and said, "You realize that anything you created while working here is still owned by TechVantage." "Naturally," I answered agreeably. "Anything I came up with as part of my job, using company equipment and during work hours." I gave those conditions a little extra emphasis, but Denise was too preoccupied with marking items off her list to catch it. "And you're confirming that you don't have any confidential company documents?" I acknowledged honestly. "I haven't taken anything that belongs to TechVantage. After all, I was the inventor of the patent." I gathered up my personal belongings from my desk, like family pictures, a group of conference name tags from attending industry events for 15 years, and the coffee cup my coworkers had given me last year. Marjorie made a stop by my desk, casually leaning on the doorway in a way that seemed staged. She observed me putting things into a box made of cardboard and said, "I just wanted to make sure everything is finalized regarding your leaving." "Perfectly clear," I answered while wrapping up a small prize I had received for the very formula that was now central to my new ventures. I was well aware of the situation as I gently nestled the award between sheets of tissue paper. Marjorie went on to state, "You understand, Kira, these decisions about company changes are never about the individual. Victor thinks our organization has to embrace a younger demographic, it seems." My eyes met hers squarely as I raised my head. "I get it," I said. "It's all just business, after all." The way I said it caused her to stop short. Briefly, a hint of doubt appeared on her face before she banished it. "What options does a 55-year-old who's about to lose her job really have? Are you planning to take a break from work?" she inquired, her voice sounding artificially sympathetic. "The truth is, I've already got a new job waiting," I responded. "My first day is next Monday." "Oh," she said, her face showed surprise. "That's quick, isn't it? Anything you find exciting?" I offered a smile. "Definitely, it's a leadership role. I'm really looking forward to it." She gave a distracted nod, already turning her thoughts elsewhere. "Okay, I wish you well with that." As I exited TechVantage's glass building for good, after handing in my keycard and collecting my things, I paused to glance back at the place where I'd dedicated 15 years of my life. I noticed the conference room on the highest floor was lit up for an evening meeting. They were probably figuring out how to divide my work among younger, less skilled, and far cheaper employees. They had no clue that in less than 3 days, that exact room would be the site of an urgent crisis meeting instead. The next Monday began with sunshine and clear skies. For this significant day, I meticulously chose my attire, selecting the new charcoal suit, a confidence-boosting ensemble I had bought particularly for this occasion. The corporate car from Precision Systems showed up right on schedule at 7:30 in the morning to chauffeur me to their main offices. There, I was to commence my initial workday as the head of innovation. Greg let me know that the official statement was released to the public at 7 sharp. As I was getting comfortable in my new office, located at the corner and featuring full, wall-to-wall windows. Newsletters focusing on our sector are already starting to mention it. The public relations people are tracking the responses for me. The wording of the announcement had been deliberately and carefully planned out. Precision Systems gains sole access to groundbreaking processing algorithm, extends a warm welcome to its creator, Dr. Kira Jennings, as the new Chief Innovation Officer. The article described my professional history, underlined my standing as the only person responsible for inventing the patented tech, and explained the ways Precision Systems would incorporate the algorithm into their upcoming products. Crucially, the statement made it very clear that any organization presently utilizing the tech would have to discuss and sign formal permission contracts, with Precision Systems moving forward. Right on time, at exactly 9:15, my phone lit up as I received my first message from the people I used to work with at TechVantage. "Everything is a mess here. Why did you do this?" It was a text from Miguel, who was my senior developer. I grinned as I replied to everyone, letting them know to look in their private inboxes. All 6 of them had job offers waiting. Simultaneously, about 8 miles away at the TechVantage main office, the usual Monday morning executive meeting was being turned upside down. From Miguel's minute-by-minute reports that morning, it sounded like Victor got to work and discovered the company's top lawyer and money person waiting for him, looking like they'd seen a ghost. The word about what was happening in our field had landed in their email. What should have been a normal start to the week had suddenly become a critical, urgent meeting. Board members were dialing in from wherever they were *. The lawyers were frantically looking over my work agreement and all the paperwork surrounding the algorithm's creation. Miguel told me they're grabbing every document with your name on it. He also said, someone just rolled in all the servers from the research department so the tech guys could take a look. I could totally imagine how it looked. I pictured Victor walking back and forth across the conference room, wanting Marjorie and the legal team to explain things. The market was likely already reacting to the news *. Investors really didn't like things being up in the air, and the announcement had certainly made things unclear. Right around 10:45 in the morning, Victor emailed me directly, and I could practically feel the panic coming off my computer screen. "Kira," the email said, "it seems like there's been a mistake. Please give me a call as soon as you can so we can talk." I didn't reply to it. Instead, I passed it along to the lawyers at Precision Systems. The rumors were flying around the industry by midday. Since the opening bell, TechVantage's shares were down 7%, whereas Precision Systems had seen a 12% jump. 3 separate tech publications wanted to talk to me about this strategic win that had really stirred things up in the accounting software world. Greg popped his head in as I was getting comfortable at my desk and asked how I was doing. Truthfully, I said, I feel vindicated. For a decade and a half, I watched others get the accolades for what I'd done, of constantly being told I should be thankful just to be involved, but now, finally, I was being acknowledged. My brand new executive assistant showed up at the doorway. She told me that the development team was waiting for me in the main conference room, Dr. Jennings. And she paused for a second. "The person in charge at TechVantage has tried to reach you 4 times in the past hour." I told her to just inform him that I would be in meetings all day long, remaining as composed as possible. "I'll have our legal department get in touch about possibly licensing our products later this week." Just as I was headed toward that first meeting in my role as Chief Innovation Officer, I got another alert from Miguel on my phone. He told me that the board had just called an unexpected meeting. "It looks like Victor's about to blow a gasket. He also added that his team and himself accepted my offer and wanted to know when they could begin working. By Tuesday morning, the entire effect of my leaving had become obvious to everybody still at TechVantage. AccountSphere, their main offering, depended completely on my algorithm to handle the enormous amounts of data that made them better than everyone else. If they couldn't get the rights to my patent, they were stuck choosing between two equally bad choices: either make a deal with Precision Systems or completely recreate their essential tech, which would take years and cost millions to develop. I got a text from Miguel saying that Victor has called everyone together for a meeting at 2 p.m. It was actually his final day working at TechVantage. Starting next Monday, he and all the other people from my old team would be at Precision Systems. Word on the street is they're planning to come after you in court. I sent his message to our legal people and they replied almost right away. I say, let them give it a shot. You've kept amazing records. All the development records, the timestamps, the records of how my own stuff was used, it was all clearly documented. We were ready if this happened. At the same time, I found myself adjusting to my new job without any real difficulty. The regard I got at Precision Systems was completely different from how things ended up at TechVantage. When I shared my thoughts in meetings, people actually paid attention. The guys I worked with didn't just steal my suggestions and pretend they came up with them. My age and all the experience I had were looked at as good things, not problems. During our afternoon update, Greg told me, the engineering team is putting your efficiency changes into practice. Initial tests show a 51% increase in how well things work. Honestly, it turned out even better than I anticipated. I confess that I had a few improvements that I never let TechVantage know about. Once I found out they intended to get rid of my job, I figured there was no point in handing over my absolute best stuff. Greg responded with a happy grin, well, too bad for them, great for us. And on that topic, he added that we received our initial request regarding licensing earlier today, although it wasn't from TechVantage just yet. I think they haven't accepted the reality of the situation. However, Dataflow Systems reached out. They're afraid of getting caught in the middle of this mess. Miguel provided a thorough report on Victor's company-wide meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon. The CEO had made an attempt to seem confident, telling the staff that TechVantage would aggressively protect our exclusive technology. Although, you could practically feel the worry in the room. Miguel also mentioned that multiple workers had already updated their LinkedIn pages because they could sense the company was in a precarious situation. Apparently, Marjorie looked as if she might pass out when someone openly asked if they had failed to obtain the patent. After that question, Victor ended the Q&A session quickly. By Wednesday, the effects on the industry had only gotten worse. Two significant clients had reached out to Precision Systems about possibly switching from AccountSphere, worried about TechVantage's capability to keep the product running without the algorithm's original developer. Meanwhile, our shares went up another 8%, and TechVantage's kept dropping. I got a phone call from Denise in Human Resources, the same person who had pushed my separation agreement toward me just a few days prior. Kira, she started, her tone meticulously businesslike. I'm calling to talk about the, matter surrounding your patent. We are under the impression that there might have been some confusion regarding who owns the patent. I answered back with composure, I really don't believe any confusion exists. The terms of my employment agreement definitively state that any intellectual property created during my personal time, utilizing my own resources, stays with me. The patent paperwork clearly validates this. Victor was hoping that perhaps you would be open to coming in to explore possibilities. I retorted that any discussions would now have to be handled by Precision Systems' legal team. I'm certain that they would be glad to schedule a meeting to go over the details of a licensing agreement. The quiet on her side really said it all. Eventually, Denise let out a sigh. I will relay that message. Later that day, I gave my initial official presentation to the Precision Systems Board of Directors, where I detailed our technology strategy with my algorithm as the most important part. I noticed Greg giving me an approving nod as I confidently stood at the front of the table, unlike back at TechVantage where I'd been hidden in the back. By the time Friday rolled around, a mere 7 days after my departure from TechVantage, the organization had descended into a complete state of emergency. Their stock value had plummeted 23% since the start of the trading week, prompting anxious inquiries from significant stakeholders. Commentators within the sector were releasing opinion pieces with titles like, "Can TechVantage pull through this algorithmic nightmare?" and how a single big mistake might spell doom for a tech behemoth. Through people I knew in the industry, I heard that Victor had finally confessed to the board just how serious things had become. The options facing TechVantage were to either purchase a license for my algorithm from Precision Systems, probably at unfairly high prices that would significantly hurt their earnings, or completely reconstruct AccountSphere without incorporating any technology protected by my patent. During our video chat that Friday, as we were going over his move to Precision Systems, Miguel let me know they had begun the process of seeking out a new group of developers. Victor is saying that they can reconstruct the functionality within half a year. That gave me a chuckle. I spent 3 years getting the original algorithm just right, and I had a deep understanding of what it was supposed to do. "That's what I'm saying," Miguel confirmed. "No one really believes that schedule, particularly after your entire team turned in their letters of resignation all at the same time. The amount of knowledge that left the building is enormous." Later that day, the lawyers from TechVantage got in touch with Precision Systems to initiate discussions regarding possible licensing deals. Adhering to the plan we'd put together, our lawyers fired back with conditions that, while not objectively unfair, would really sting strategically. A licensing fee 3 times what's typical in the industry, alongside publicly crediting me as the inventor of the technology. As we went over our response in Greg's office, he guessed they'd object to the credit more than the price. I figured that Victor's pride would get in the way of him recognizing the individual that developed their primary technology. "In that case, they'll have to start over," I responded. "Each day they waste attempting to duplicate what I've done gives us another day to increase our advantage over them in the marketplace." The Monday after that, a little over a week since my abrupt firing, I was running the first meeting with my newly established innovation group, which also included Miguel and the other 5 engineers I snagged from TechVantage. You could feel the excitement in the room when we began outlining the next stage of my algorithm. One of my ex-colleagues, Anita, remarked that this is how brainstorming sessions should feel. Back at TechVantage, half our time was spent trying to explain fundamental ideas to managers who weren't paying attention in the first place. That's what happens when you're appreciated versus feeling like you can be tossed aside, I observed. In this place, your knowledge is acknowledged. As we were concluding the worthwhile meeting, my assistant showed up at the doorway. "So, Doc, something pretty major just happened with TechVantage. Turns out their board made a sudden announcement about shifting things around at the top. Victor Lawson's leaving his post, like, right now." It didn't take long for the word to get out. Just a few hours later, the industry press was saying that TechVantage's board had lost faith in how Victor was running things, all because of that screw-up with the patent that put their main product at risk. And Marjorie Thompson got the boot too, along with the legal department head who messed up the patent protection in the first place. Later that night, Richard Donovan, the guy they just made interim CEO at TechVantage, sent me an email out of the blue. It wasn't a panicked message like the one Victor sent last week. This one was clear and showed some respect. He wrote, "Doc, congrats on the new job. They brought me on board to help TechVantage get through this mess. I'd like to talk about setting up a licensing deal for your patented tech that's on the up and up. We're ready to give you the recognition you deserve in public and make things right for all the mistakes the old management made. Would you be free to sit down and chat next week?" I shot the email over to Greg with a quick note that said Phase 1 done. He got back to me fast, saying it all went off without a hitch. "The board is throwing a party because you scored the first big win for Precision Systems." Seems like TechVantage is belatedly discovering the hard way how vital it is to appreciate forward-thinking ideas and the people behind them. Only a quarter of a year had passed since I left TechVantage when I found myself on the platform at the National Technology Innovation Conference, getting ready to give the main speech. The hall was packed with important people from the field, reporters covering tech, and developers just starting out. A lot of those folks were already familiar with what happened to me. And now, it's my honor to present to you our keynote speaker. The person in charge of the conference proclaimed, Dr. Kira Jennings, the Chief Innovation Officer at Precision Systems, and the mind behind the distributed processing algorithm that completely changed how data is handled in numerous fields. There was enthusiastic clapping as I walked toward the stand. It's amazing what can happen in a few months. Just a year ago, I had gone to this very conference as one of the people representing TechVantage, sitting way in the back as Victor did a presentation about how innovative his company was. All right, let's get started. I started to look closely at the crowd of people paying attention. What I want to talk about today is who really owns innovation and why it's so important to properly recognize intellectual work, no matter where it originates. My talk went into the technical details of the algorithm I created, but it also got into the bigger subjects of acknowledgement and respect within the tech world. I made sure to stress how vital it is for businesses to safeguard the people who come up with new ideas, instead of just thinking anyone can be swapped in. Later on, at the after-party, quite a few younger female engineers came up to me looking for some guidance and someone to look up to. One of them, who couldn't have been much older than 30, told me privately, "What you said really made me rethink how I keep track of what I do. I've begun carefully recording every step of my development work in my free time. That's the way to do it," I responded. "Your new ideas need to be protected." As the night wrapped up, I glanced at my phone and saw a breaking news alert from the industry. It turned out they'd finally revealed the deal with Precision Systems and even gave me credit as the person who came up with the algorithm. Their stock had leveled out, although it was worth way less than before I left. Exactly a year after they told me to pack up my stuff and leave, I was sitting in my big office at Precision Systems, looking over the innovation report for the quarter. The company had launched 3 revolutionary products based on my algorithm since I took charge, and we'd taken a big chunk of the market away from them and other companies. Just then, someone rapped on my door, cutting me off from what I was doing. It was Greg, and he had a bottle of champagne and a pair of glasses with him. "Congrats on the anniversary," he said, putting the glasses down on my desk. "The board wanted me to be the one to tell you the news before we put out a press release. For the very first time, Precision Systems is worth more than TechVantage on the market. It's kind of unbelievable." A feeling of peaceful contentment, not wild celebration, came over me, and I couldn't help but grin slightly. It's a natural outcome when you truly appreciate the importance of new ideas. My assistant walked in with a classy-looking envelope just as Greg started pouring the bubbly. It was a request for me to be a speaker at the yearly Women in Tech Leadership Conference. And the subject? Figuring out how much your ideas are actually worth. "You know, you've become a bit of a legend," Greg remarked, spotting the invitation. The narrative about that executive who didn't realize the worth of her creations until they vanished has turned into a warning for businesses everywhere. After the dust settled from the chaos, Richard Donovan, still at the helm as TechVantage's CEO, completely revamped how the company valued and rewarded new concepts. Apparently, their updated guidelines for safeguarding intellectual property and acknowledging creators were inspired by the system I put in place at Precision Systems. "It wasn't about getting even," I remarked, lifting my glass for a celebratory drink. "It was about acknowledgement, about making it clear that innovation has a face. It originates from flesh and blood people who merit genuine appreciation." Greg echoed, touching his glass to mine, to rightfully giving credit where credit is due. The sun was pouring through the windows in my office this afternoon, and I was thinking about the path I've taken. I'm 56 years old now, and I've finally stumbled upon the thing that I had been searching for my entire professional life, more than just doing well, but getting recognition. The algorithm that redefined an entire industry now bears my name forever, and that feels absolutely right.